Hello, welcome back, viewers. I welcome you to the second part of our podcast series, which is called Rise of AI and Legal Decision Making. We'll be having another set of questions to Chetan, who can help us understand a lot of things that we can do using AI. Okay, so could you discuss the role of predictive analytics in legal decision making and how it might change the way the lawyers approach the
I think this is one of the most fantastic uses of Gen AI, correct? And you barely scratched the surface on this, correct? And that, by the way, there are many movies which have where similar stuff is used. There's, I don't remember the name of the movie, but there's Tom Cruise, correct? And the AI predicts that he will murder somebody, correct? And was it Inception or something like that? I don't know. It's one of those things. There was another movie where the AI already knows, correct, that you're feeling, correct, and it's only trying to shield you from the inevitable end. Correct? So these are like very advanced versions of predictive analytics in play, right? But if you really look at it, if you have a large body of contracts, let's say you're an enterprise, right? You may have 50,000 contracts. Does anyone remember what happened or what's going on in each of those 50,000 contracts?
Yeah, it's not possible.
It's not possible. The data is also spread out, say, between procurement, operations, sales, legal, correct?
Right.
And to be able to get this, you have information today which will basically tell you, because of metadata, saying when our contracts want to expire, when is the renewal date coming up, and things like that, correct? But can it predict, which are your failure points in contracts? Can it predict that with a particular customer, correct, this would be the length of contracts that is typically going to be there? Or if you even load up, say, financial data, correct? And we've done this, correct? So based on data, it can even predict your EPS for the next 2 quarters or your predictive sales and things like that, right? And this is based on real-time data, correct? And that can keep changing as well, correct? So from a very futuristic standpoint, this is like manipulating timelines in Star Trek, correct? So every change in a timeline can impact something else later on. And in our case, correct, if you really look at an organization, correct, there may be many things that can have an impact on so many other things as well, correct? And sometimes the responses are always reactive. And you really wish that you had the prediction ability to be able
how the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, and you are a master at this, group. I only speak on this from my perspective as legal, but as a data scientist that that some of these things are beyond the realm of science fiction as well sometimes, right?
Yeah, very much.
And there are things that I know of several startups wanting to do share price speculation and things like that. We'll not get into some of those things, but predictive analytics based on the quality of the data, based on the volume of the data, can really transform an enterprise as well, correct? Knowing fully well, let's say, oddly you will know that if a company has, say, 100 products and enterprises in an enterprise, you will know that 2 or 3 of these may be doing well. But in reality, it may be something else. It may be, so from a legal perspective, it's fantastic to have some of these things. You can also predict the outcome of cases, right? Not just because of, and if there's a change in judge or if there's a new element of evidence, then the appropriate weightages, can be given to some of these things, tweaked, and actually get to a stage where you have some reasonable certainty. I wouldn't say that it's always going to be, there have been too many things and
too many variables to actually
to do all of these things as well.
Yeah, absolutely predict.
But I would differ on that. I think we have the more variables you have, correct? The more the better the ability for Gen AI to juggle all of these things.
Control. It's more control points, basically,
It's,
right?
A human's way of thinking maybe about 6 or 8 data points at any point in time that they can juggle in their minds to arrive at an outcome. But Gen AI can do 20, 30, 300, 3,000, 4,000, right? There's no limit on all of these things. You have to guard yourself against confused data or confused results, right? But when it comes to predictive analytics, say, showcase a trend line for something like this, or let me know when this is likely going to conclude. What is the outcome? How other companies have faced something like this? What are the potential fines? Right? Things like that become a gold mine, and that today is possible. From all of these advances in technology as well. Right? So, and if you have the relevant systems, and we do, as a matter of fact, we use this. We have successfully sort of done this as well, and it's like an encyclopedia of things that you can do. It's very, very useful information. It can also change the way you do business. You can decide whether or not to go into a particular.
You can course correct based on how the outcome might be.
Exactly, correct. So these are things which earlier you would use some very sophisticated minds.
Your experience, or needs a lot of strategists.
You'd call a board of directors,
right?
And advisors, and a board of advisors to arrive at this, right? And you'll have a debating session, and then someone finally takes a call after hearing everybody saying, okay, this is likely the thing, and you don't know whether it's going to be right or not. It's based on gut feel,
intuition, and
And there's an interesting book saying how intuition has failed us so many times. Think about it, and that is true as well. But here, the analytics are based on data points, and the data points are basically what and how you run your business or your law firm or things like this. So there are a lot of uses for these, and once again, it's like having a key to a lot of excellent data, and based on which you can take decisions. Like if you're a lawyer, let's say you have more success in family law cases than corporate law, as an example. You can course correct immediately, and you can also, as an example, say that if you take certain calls, say on a particular document, correct, on certain positions in certain document, positions are likely to be accepted by the other side. So this is the gold mine of stuff. So that's how I view it. But what do you think, Dhruv? Do you think that?
Yeah, definitely. I think if we can know what we are getting into, what is the risk associated, what are the compliance risks, or different kinds of risks, what is the success rate of a particular action that we're going to take, we definitely will be geared up to adopt an approach that is going to give us more success than just believing in what we are trying to do, or probably leaning on somebody else's experience, or their experiences, basically. So it's always a better approach than doing the regular way.
I think on data sciences, on machine learning, this would be like the next thing. We've seen the use of predictions, especially in autonomous car driving and things like that, where or even autonomous drone flying. If it loses Wi-Fi contact, it will come back to a certain point on the base and things like these, right? And those are applications associated, with different fields. But when it comes to critical fields, like how human reasoning can be benefited or supplemented by use of all of these things, I think predictive analytics is right up there.
And another thing is that AI can remove biases. So most of the people who take decisions or a certain course, they are biased, or they are trying to lean towards a certain direction. Then that's where AI can remove those biases, probably clear up your mind and give you ways to think better.
And it's true in real life as well. If you take courts, correct, and if you look at a cohort of justices in a court, each cohort, correct, will have a certain bias, whether it's unconscious or not.
Right.
It really depends on the person's background, his abilities, his experience, and so many things. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Bias is not necessarily bad, but you'll get a cohort sometimes that's extremely liberal. You get a cohort sometimes that's extremely extremely restrictive. Sometimes you get a balanced cohort, correct? So things like these, and it's true even in companies as well, correct? Saying, you'll see newspapers or online thing, oh, they are biased, oh, this is happening, correct? And it's one of the ways is to sort of like, you can use AI to sort of like really refine this data to make it more even, correct? And take it out such that it's balanced itself out as well. But it's still early days. I wouldn't say that even the data sets that you're using can be biased, correct? So you have to guard against some of these things as well. And there's no, at least today I wouldn't say that with 100% accuracy that you'll be able to remove all bias from the system. I don't think that system exists. Correct. I don't know, Guru. What do you think? Can we build such a system?
No. AI is basically trained by humans, so it is
all
known to have some amount of bias by default.
So unless you have a machine creating a machine,
right,
which we have no idea, and that's not, at least in today's technology, may not be. And now we are getting into sentient machines and things like that. Totally different field. But I mean, look, you'll have, that's another thing. Excellent point saying, you'll be able to at least eliminate bias in some of these things. When you're approaching a decision, or you want to eliminate your own bias when it comes to decision making in a particular scenario. These become very, very critical.
So great, Chetan. I think we are our viewers are definitely getting a lot of insights on the applications of AI and how it can be used on what are the various use cases. So I also would like to understand what are the challenges associated with AI in legal practices.
Oh, I have my own personal biases on this because, one, I have met people during the course of work where people are like either totally dismissive, and the dismissive always happens because they're scared, right? And of the changes that are coming and how it might impact them. At the back of their minds, you can basically always gauge that it is fear that's driving all of these things. Then there's also the traditional factors of FUD all around. Fear is one thing which I just discussed. Then you've got uncertainty as well. Correct? People are uncertain as to how this technology can be utilized and whether they can rely on the technology or not. Correct? Despite having data to the contrary saying that it is much more accurate, efficient, cost-effective, things like these as well. Right? So, and then there's doubt. Correct? Saying, will this achieve mainstream?
Right.
Mainstream usage, correct? But if you take everything from your AI-powered camera in your phone, on your mobile phone, to everything, that it is becoming it is becoming all-pervasive. It's only a question of time. So apart from those traditional FUD factors, if you really ask me, right, there are a few things that come up, saying, how do I protect against data leakage? You can use your own data sets, and you can run some of these things in your own systems as well. Right? But keep in mind that if you use a cloud, you can always use or rely on guardrails as well. That prevents abuse, or it prevents erroneous stuff being introduced into the system as well. If you notice AI, correct, one of the things that the current generation of large legal models also introduces is multi-modality and as well as the ability to infer and remember things. Right? So the speed of inference and latency keeps going down. Correct? And you can basically help it memorize a few things, correct? And the longer you use it, the better it becomes. The earlier models will remember, correct? After say 5 or 6 conversations, you lose complete track of what you're doing. I don't think that exists now anymore, right? And also the ability to sort of deal with the deal, at least in the last year or so. The window of tokens that can be processed at any given point in time has moved from 4,000 to minimum to several 100,000 now, right? So I think some of these things are engineering challenges that are being met with better technology, better GPUs, with better processing power and things like that. So guardrails and data leakages are something that can effectively be nullified, in today's context. So it's no longer a threat, but should be kept in mind. If you decide to use an open API to be able to sort of on your data sets, yes, there could be, depending on, please read the terms of use to see that your data isn't being leaked as well. So these are, and depending on whatever LLM that you use, whether you use an untrained, publicly accepted LLM, whether it's open source or not, or whether you have some. But as I would suggest that doing having your own custom data sets, your own mini LLMs would be a lot better, in terms of safeguarding data, right? And also, from what I've seen, there's over-reliance also on the other end. And depending on the generations that are utilizing the technology, newer generations tend to sort of workers tend to rely much more on AI, right? While it is generally accurate and generally to a very high degree, please remember that if you are in an open chat kind of like a scenario, it basically becomes like garbage in, garbage out, right? So you can, so if you feed it all of the biases, all the uncertainty, all garbage data, you can expect
back the same.
It's the same thing. So, I would be, so you need to use this in, if you are relying, and there's a tendency to over-rely, especially in newer generations of workers, please use custom data sets, custom LLMs, things like these, that are tailored to what you require with the necessary guardrails, right? So, also, one of the casualties is knowledge in all this, traditional human knowledge. It's like saying, today you take an example, that how many car makers manually assemble their machines? I would think zero, right? I mean, if you visit the Kia plant here in India, right, then the whole thing is run by probably like 20 people, right, as an example, because that is the efficiency in the robotics that's at work. Only the robot knows whether it is effective or not, or things like it's no longer a question of human intelligence at work there. And that's a casualty in knowledge areas like law, things like that, where it's, one of the things is you rely on the technology because you think that it knows, but you should be able to spot some of these things as well.
So you're saying that we should not use AI as a black box, should basically also understand what's going on inside?
Yeah, I think one of the things there is to also document an LLM's performance, right? Benchmark it, look for errors and things like that, and continuously train it so that over a period of time, some of these things are eliminated as well. It's only a question of because the reliance on these technologies is going to be a lot more as you go forward. But if you talk to knowledge workers of a previous generation, they will remember all of these things, but it's very easy to spot errors, right? So maybe that kind of knowledge may not exist anymore. It may not be required as well, correct? But it becomes the organization's duty to ensure that some of these errors, the benchmarks, the latest technology, the latest guardrails are used for all of these things as well, right? Also, one of the things which since since both of us have kids of the current generation, correct? So one of the things is I constantly believe this, which is missing, is critical thinking. Correct? You really think about it. What does critical thinking mean? The ability to perceive whether a source of information is correct or not, or can be relied on or not. Right? So critical thinking becomes much more of a human trait or a requirement for a human trait to be able to utilize AI better. And that's how I would like to think about this. Right? So critical thinking is a much needed skill, and especially if you have knowledge workers utilizing AI a lot. And there are certain professions that do this well. Legal has a lot of hopefully critical thinkers around, but it's one of the skills that is required. So I would think that these are challenges of using AI either in a law firm or in an enterprise setting and things like that. But I've also given you the solutions for all of these things as well.
Okay. So, Chetan, we would like to, probably the viewers would like to know how Coco has, what all solutions Coco has developed and how it has solved some of these problems. So, can you just talk about how Coco's AI review, about the Coco's AI review feature, how it can enhance the document analysis, etc.?
Yeah, I think, we build products around AI that simplify a lot of things as well. I won't get into every product and what it does. But if you have a document, expect a review in seconds, right? You don't have to wait for hours or days to get back a response. You get it back in seconds. I think that to me is like a key feature, especially if you're an experienced person. You want some key points immediately. That's exactly what it provides, right? Now, if you're a small law firm, right, but you're getting larger mandates, then if you use something like GenAI, you're adding various tiers of associates without actually hiring those, right? You can use something like sectoral review, things like these, or M&A to be able to do some of our products, to be able to sort of really add a level of expertise pretty much immediately, right, for all of these things as well. Right? If you are an overworked legal department, then expect that a lot of efficiency immediately, right? Think about it. If you have, say, 3 people, but looking at 3,000 contracts a month as an example, right? Then that's not scalable from a human perspective. But with this, it's totally scalable, right? And it's available 24/7. So I think these are some of the things that I would, for me, really work. So just to sum it up, once again, it's on efficiency, scalability, ability to add knowledge tiers very easily, correct? It can also be very cost effective, especially as a business owner. These things really matter as well. So I think these are things that immediately come to mind.
Okay, so Chetan, let's get a little bit more features. You can try to see and understand how do you see the role of AI in the legal sector heading in the next few years, let us say.
I mean, we've already talked about this initially, Guru, but I will just take a step back, correct, and look at it, say, from a justice delivery standpoint. Right? At the end of the day, for instance, in India, there are more than 50 million cases pending. Would you like justice to be delayed all the time? Would you like justice to be delivered on time so that it actually impacts impacts the rule of law, things like that? So, if you really think about it, you today have we've had collaborative human technology. I wouldn't call it technology. I would call it collaborative human endeavors like mediation and arbitration coming out, correct? And these are as an alternative to cases in courts. And they have been partly successful. It hasn't decreased the caseload, correct? And it's only become more expensive, right? You think about it. And justice is not just about the high-profile cases or the commercial cases and so on. Correct? You think about it. But today you have a system which can perfectly streamline all of these things. You have automation and AI systems which, if used in tandem, can simply reduce that entire caseload, to just a couple of years, and the whole thing can be sorted out. Right? Now you only need judges to be able to sort of give the final sign off, right? Because today's technology has the ability to not just emulate but use all the knowledge and the precedents and everything else to arrive at a very nuanced decision as well. You can do this. You can also take the shape of any legal or juristic person that is an expert in those particular fields as well. Right? What it requires finally is to also cut down. What it does essentially is cut down the load on judges.
Right.
Judges, if you look at the justice system today, it's just now discovered Zoom. Think about it. Since because of COVID, virtual court hearings became a thing, and that's how it's been going on. But that technology has existed now for what, 30 years?
Yeah, very much.
Since the time Cisco invented it, right? Things like these, right? It's been there for a long time. And but what I'm just saying is, today you have the ability to really bring that number down. There's a very realistic chance, right, to do this, and not at a very great cost as well. Right? And it doesn't mean that you have to hire hundreds and thousands of judges, or you have to sort of go through the system up and down and things like that. As long as you're able to sort of have experienced people sign off on judgments after listening or hearing to all the points, right? I think that becomes very critical. Unfortunately, we've had 3 new criminal justice legislation come out just this week, correct? None of this actually tackles this, because this was probably done before all of these things. But if you're really looking at, say, even the criminal justice system, and you're bringing some efficiency into it, especially in India, you will use Gen AI. There is no option. You cannot cut down 50 million cases just because of a whim. It's not something that you can do this. You have to use technology to be able to do this. You have to sort of cut it down. Right? So, otherwise there's no point. It keeps building. There's pressure. The less respect that the people will have for the justice system, because it's not being delivered on time. Right? So these are things that legislation has to really pick up. Unfortunately, if you look at legislation today, they'll say, "Oh, let's tackle this. Let's cut this down because you want to cut job." It really is not the case. If you use it properly, it can really cut down the excesses of the justice system, especially in places like India, where it's actually not being delivered on time. And I speak this as a lawyer, who has experienced all of these things, and I don't think and someone who's experienced this for 2 decades, right? So these are some of the things that I would really address. The other thing which we also talked about, which really matters, is institutional memory. In many organizations, whether it is government or justice delivery or companies or law firms or any other type of entity, right? Institutional memory is key. Who did what? Who did thought about this when? What happened? Why? Or what is it that's doing? This is what is missing in many organizations. Guru, you and I have dealt in the course of Coco situations where institutional memory is so absent, and you really require it. Right? So there has to be a system or some investments that go into all of these things as well. And that is possible today at a scale which was never possible before.
Technology that has come in with all the tools that we have today.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. And it's accessible. And it's very powerful. Also, this technology, the advent of technology, third point which I want to also stress is the focus is not on achieving the smaller things. Like filling up forms should not become a big thing.
Right.
You shouldn't have humans actually sitting and doing all of those things. You really think about it.
Right.
Why would you introduce inefficiency when technologies are available to be able to counter all of these things as well? From a very futuristic standpoint, even today, for that matter, correct? You may have gone across some websites where it has knowledge of what you did. Perhaps because I visited it before, perhaps because I've answered those questions before. Perhaps it's led by a Gen AI system tomorrow where it knows what you've done earlier, right? So these are some. So I call this form filling. Human time is wasted on form filling.
Monotonous daily and regular standard jobs, basically.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. This should be. If you really look at it, and we go back to the justice delayed is justice denied example, correct? Saying you got to use these, instead of form filling, you should use this for something else. So this becomes very, very critical, and you should use the current generation of technologies to be able to streamline all of these things as well, right? So I think that's where things are, and that's how I would sort of like conclude on where do you see. Where do you hope that the technologies would go through, especially in the legal tech sector, correct? And while a lot of our examples have come from our home market, which is India, right? But these are true in all
very
parts.
much relevant in any territory or any region.
Correct. Correct. And that is exactly what you should, in the next 5 years, you hope that all of these things are achieved as well. But thanks so much, Guru, and I really appreciate your time in coming up with these questions and asking. Some of these are very, very specific to me. Some of the responses about how I think about how AI could potentially be used and things like that, even with our current technology. Right? So we should sort of, I look forward to our next set of sessions, where we cover all the latest things about AI and their impact and things like that. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening to us or watching this on YouTube. Please don't forget to subscribe to Code and Counsel. That's the name of our podcast. It's now available on Apple, Spotify, and all of the major podcast directories. Don't forget also to press the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you.